Welcome to another edition of the 5-Star Zone. I guess this is the Big Ten Hoops recap as Harold, every Big Ten team is out of the NCAA tournament, so really don't need to break down the Final Four. Fans got what they wanted. Anyway, Rico Beard, that's Harold Shelton III, Senior Research Manager of the Big Ten Network. He's the guy with all the stats, knows all the stuff. I get all the text messages throughout games saying, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? Yeah, there's nobody smarter than Harold. Real quick, Harold, as much as people want to complain about the NCAA tournament committee, they got it right. We didn't get the upsets, but we didn't get anybody overseeded. We didn't get anybody underseeded. Almost got everything right to the point where it was 4 1s, 3 2s, and a 3 in the tournament. Only St. John's was the only one who didn't live up to it and have somebody there. Really no big upsets. I think you had a 12 and an 11 upset. That's about it. Yeah, I mean, for everybody who complained, like, they actually got it. Isn't this what we wanted them to do year after year? Nobody was placed in the wrong spot. You didn't see some 13 seed going all the way to the Final Four because they were seeded wrong. They got it right, in my opinion. And now you end up with, because I think in the Ken Palm ranking, the top, not just the top 4, but the top 8 teams all made the Elite 8, according to Ken Palm. So, yeah, I can't sit here and complain. There's a giant gap between the 4 that are in there and the 4 that are not. Had Michigan State won, they would have been the Washington Generals. They couldn't compete on the level of the Floridas and the Dukes or Houston. I mean, Houston probably would have been the best bet for MSU had they made it, but that means you would have had to go through Florida. Don't think that was going to happen at all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Committee did get it right. I thought early on there was some, like, hey, how did Louisville get an 8 and play in Lexington? Like, that doesn't seem right. Then you look and they get blown out by Creighton in the first game. It's like,
Didn't matter.
Well, maybe they should have been an 8. There were different examples like that. And then it seemed like anytime you had a real chance for an upset, whether that was Colorado State beating Maryland, the Dairy Queen shot happens, or you had Arkansas, like they were going to be the quote unquote Cinderella as a 10 seed to get to the Elite 8. They blow that big lead against Texas Tech, and then Tech comes out of there. And it looks like Texas Tech's going to be the party crasher for the Final Four, and then they let that one get away. And so, at the end, the cream rose to the top.
Right.
Even if you look right now at all of the Ken Palm data going back to when he started it, 96, 97, these are 4 of the 10 best teams that have ever been in his data. So
wait, you're saying 4 of the best ever now?
Right now, as the tournament is still going on, you got this Duke team was his second best team. Houston was his 6th best. Florida was 8th, and Auburn was 10th.
So who was the best? One of those UConn teams?
It was the 99 Duke team that lost to UConn with Rip and Khalid Al-Amin. They were so dominant that whole year.
Was that Shane Battier?
Yep, Shane Battier, Elton Brand, freshman Corey Maggette, Will Avery, like that team. That was the overwhelming favorite to win it. That got shocked at the end by UConn. They were still that good. They were still the best team in his data because they were that good throughout the year, throughout the tournament.
Oh, man, I'm going to have to find that link now and add that to the show. But, yeah, I just look at these 4 teams, and, man, I mean, probably the one who can still kick themselves is got to be Purdue.
Yep.
You're playing at home.
Yep.
You actually tied the game up. It's 60-60. It looked like you had a great defensive stand, and all of a sudden, Houston gets the ball back with 2.8 seconds left, and you really are looking at overtime. I was, and I was walking so much so I was walking out of the room thinking, okay, it's about to be overtime. I got enough time to run downstairs, and then I hear the announcers, and I quickly turn back, and I see old boy dunking the ball. Like, what just happened here? They show the replay. And we start texting each other. I don't know who 0 for Purdue was guarding. I mean, this ain't gonna look good when they break down the tape and the coaches just pause and be like, son, what were you doing? Where were you? You literally look like a chicken with your head cut off, running around in circles, guarding nobody. And I guess that was your guy who made it. You got to be sick. Fortunately for them, it's not a long plane ride. It's just a 30-minute drive back to campus. But I thought Purdue had it. I was kind of wondering, could they pull this one off? But as the game was going, somebody told Fletcher Lawyer that the season finally started. He went back to being the Fletcher Lawyer that we haven't seen since last year with Zach Edey. That was the one that I thought, okay, they were going to be the first 1 seed to go down. I thought it was either going to be them or Auburn. Michigan gave Auburn the scare. And then Auburn all of a sudden hit. I've never seen a team hit a switch the way I saw Auburn did, where they looked awful. I think they were at 16 turnovers. And then, okay, we're done playing. Let's get serious because I got something to do. I've been messing around with y'all too long. Let's go.
Yeah, that was crazy because it looked like Michigan was getting whatever they wanted for the most part, even with the turnovers. They were up 9 with about 12 minutes left in a very pro-Auburn crowd. And Danny Wolf's doing whatever he wants. He looks like he's the best player on the floor. And then Pettiford got going and Denver Jones got going. And you really saw the gap between the two teams in the guards because I think when we talked last week, we thought like the bigs might be a wash and it was going to come down to the guard play. And the Trey Donaldson, Roddy Gale, LJ Kaysen, like they came back down to earth. And I think they combined for 5 for 18 or something like that. And you saw Pettiford's a pro, Denver Jones a problem. And once Michigan turned it over, they're getting out in transition. They're dominating on the glass, getting second chance points that way. And they just couldn't do anything. And I think the biggest surprise for me was Vlad was a complete non-factor in that game. He went 2 for 9 from the field. And you wonder if he plays like to his normal ability, does Michigan hang around to that 5-minute, 4-minute mark?
You see, Harold, I think for the first time, if you really think about it, Vlad's never really gone up against somebody more athletic than him. He's always been the biggest guy on the playground, so he's the bully. Yep. And for the first time, Janai Broome was like, nah, bro, I'm the bully out here. He pulled the Debo role. He's snatching chains out there. And Vlad was like, okay. I mean, you saw it wore him down.
Yep. Cardwell, too. Cardwell was pushing him out of the paint. Yeah. He tried to back him down. He wasn't moving. So then
now, you know what? I take that back. Janai Broome was just out there playing. But with Cardwell, that was Debo. I mean, he just looked like, do you really want a piece of me, son? Actually, I don't, sir. I'm sorry. Right. Here's $5. Please leave me alone.
Yep.
But that game was awful. That game was awful. Only thing, if it wasn't for that Michigan-Nebraska game, that was a horrible game. I mean, the sequence that I believe it was Michigan turned it over. Auburn then goes down the court. Broome tries to throw a behind-the-back pass. He turns it over. Michigan gets it back, only throw the ball out of bounds. It was like I was watching just a bad fifth-grade team out there. Like, what am I watching? It ends up being like a total of 31 total turnovers in the game and unforced. When Michigan State played Ole Miss played great defense. Yep. And you turn the ball over, but it's no shame because that's lockdown defense. That's, perimeter defense. That's, suffocating. That was just dribble off your foot, dribble off your leg. Oops, my bad. I thought you was going over here. Hey, watch this fancy pass. Oh, off my butt, out of bounds. And then, like I said, Auburn they hit that switch, and then they just went and annihilated Michigan. I thought it was funny that you probably know the exact score, but at the 12-18 mark of the Auburn-Michigan game and the Ole Miss MSU game, it was the exact same score. Michigan was up by 9. Ole Miss was up by 9. Neither team ended up winning the game.
For MSU, 48-39.
Yeah, 48-39. See, I knew you would know that. So, for Michigan, they got to the Sweet 16. I thought maybe because State had just won, and everybody here in the state of Michigan was like, oh, maybe we're going to get that matchup. MSU did their job. They made it, and then Auburn came back, and then MSU ends up playing Auburn. And honestly, in that game, you once again, you saw the difference between Auburn when they want to play and Auburn when they mess around. They came out, and they picked up exactly where they ended the game with Michigan, going on a 17-year-old run. Now, a part of that, I got to blame Tom Izzo for this because you didn't use your timeout. How did you let Auburn go? That's not Iowa, okay? That's not Nebraska. Hell, that's not even Oregon. That's the number 1 overall seed, and you allowed them to go on a 17-0 run with your best player waiting to get in the game because you were waiting for the under 12 timeout. A lot of stuff happened, but I look at that as it reminded me of Middle Tennessee, where you let Middle Tennessee go on this long run and you played catch up the entire game. They never could get the lead. They would get it to about 8, and then they get pushed back, and then they get to like 8, and then it goes back to 11. They never got over that hump, and I'm wondering, like, man, if you just call a timeout, it could be that could have been the difference maker. Because right now I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I hope you packed that timeout on your bag and TSA pre-check didn't, pull you off to the side and say, where you get this timeout from, Tom? Why didn't you use it in the game?
Yeah, he definitely could have used it earlier. And it's a use it or lose it timeout in the first half anyway, so it's not like you could take it with you to the second half. I definitely thought he could have taken it a couple possessions earlier. Like you said, you had battle lineup in there.
Bro, when Auburn goes on a 10-0 run, because you know what happened? State goes on a 7-0 run. You know what Bruce Pearl did? Timeout. Nope. Yep. Not going to happen. Nah, it's 7-0. We're going to stop this. We're going to regroup. And they never got in it. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if you wonder, because I think it was 10-8, they were up, and then it wound up being like 23-8 or something like that. And you wonder if they keep it to 10 instead of 15, and then they make the run, and they wind up cutting it to 3 instead of 7 or 8. Like, how does the rest of the game look? Because you're right. Like, they wound up digging that hole like they've done. They did it against New Mexico. They did it against Ole Miss. But you didn't have the athletes to overcome that against Auburn. No, I thought the biggest thing for me in this game compared to the previous two was, even though the shots weren't falling, they were able to get to the rim in those other rounds. They were able to finish against Ole Miss at the rim. They were able to finish against New Mexico at the rim. They couldn't do that at all against Auburn. They got in there. Some, went up a little tentative, got it blocked, or thinking they were going to get blocked.
Oh, no. They let's just call it what it is. They played scared. First 10 minutes of the game. And I can say that, and it's like, oh, Rico, you calling? No. Because I believe it was
Jace.
I think it was Jace at halftime said, yeah, we playing scared. We didn't go as aggressive as we could to the basket. And you could tell, it's like, guys, you've had your shot blocked before. It's just either you get it blocked or maybe you get a foul, you get an and one, but you can't go in tentative because you're never going to make that shot.
Yep. And that's what happened. I think, some people were going in trying to get a foul and they didn't call it, or they were scared to get it blocked. And so then they, try to go up and under the rim, or instead of just going right through a guy's chest. And, whenever they couldn't make shots against Ole Miss, as we saw in that first half, they're like, you know what, second half, we're going to move the ball around and we're going to get it to the wing, and we're going to have Akins drive, or we're going to have Richardson drive, or we're going to have Holloman drive. And it was the same thing against New Mexico. But this round, once the threes weren't falling, they tried to get to the rim. They couldn't do it. They finished 9 for 22 at the rim. Like, that's just not going to get it done when you can't make threes.
So Trey Holloman scores 2 points, 0 for 10 from the field, 0 for 5 from three-point line. He's balling like nobody's business after the game, and it's amazing what happens over a course of weeks, but really over a course of 24 hours. Every State fan is feeling sorry for this kid, only to find out on April Fool's Day, hey, Trey's going into the portal. When I got the first call, I was just like, come on, man. I believe nothing that happens on April Fool's. I just don't. Sorry. And they're like, no, people called around and was like, no, this is legit. This is for real. He's going into the portal. Harold, and it looks like I thought maybe he would go in there to negotiate because he probably felt like he was severely underpaid. He's the captain. He gave up his starting role. I don't know if he's going back to MSU or not. I had somebody, all throughout the season kept telling me, hey, watch out for Trey. He's going to hit the portal. He may go back to Minnesota. And I was just like, come on, man. You over-exaggerate everything. Come to find out, this guy knew what he was talking about. I don't know if he's going to end up going back to Minnesota, but it was just a shock because he seemed like Mr. Spartan Dog. Like, this is the guy that defended the logo. This is the guy that, stood toe-to-toe with Zach Edey, even though Zach Edey was like 3 feet taller than him. But he still did. Like, I'm just shocked. Like, wow, did you see this coming?
No, I didn't see it coming at all. I thought like him and Fears probably were the two guys that I thought there was no chance that they would leave. Now, everybody else you never really know in the portal, but, Izzo seems to have a special relationships with his guards. And like you said, with the way that Holloman, kind of played throughout the season and seemed to be, embraced, that he seemed to embrace the culture and being allowed to kiss the logo after what happened against Michigan. And there was no way I thought that he would be the guy that would go in the portal. It was just let you have no idea what guys are thinking. You have no idea what they're being offered, what their situations are, off the court. We can only see, what's happening on the court, and what's being, written in articles and stuff like that. So, it's a whole new world out there. And from year to year, you just don't know how it's going to go.
Now I'm with you. I mean, like Jackson Kohler probably had one of his best games. Frankie Fiddler, shout out Frankie Fiddler, finally earned all of that money. They don't win without those two guys. I mean, if I told you, like, they just rose up. Jackson Kohler is another guy I'm looking at because people ask me, I'm like, the way I see it, from here on out, I'm just going to assume everybody's going to go into the portal, renegotiate a contract, and either you come back or you don't.
Yep.
You can't sit here and I think fans are the last loyal people that are out there. Okay. And it's like we get upset and so, oh, you betrayed me. And really, it's like, no, you're the last one. You're still there. Players aren't loyal. Hell, at the end of a rivalry game, Vlad Golden thought it would be okay to get engaged and asked his girlfriend to marry him after a loss. So, yeah, that shows you players, it doesn't mean that much. Coaches, where you got Willard leaving. No, wait, I'm not leaving. Wait, I am leaving. I am going to Villanova. You got coaches leaving in the middle of the tournament, even though their teams are playing. I mean, even the professional sports owners, teams, hell, even cities aren't loyal anymore. Only the fans are loyal. Only the fans believe that, you know what, I'm going to die for these colors no matter what, because you're the only one. The other people aren't. So I say all that to say, I'm not shocked by anybody because even later on in that day, we always talked about the two trades, whether it's good trade or bad trade. Trey Donaldson leaving for his third team. He left Auburn, which I kind of figured when he went up against his old team in Auburn, he was going to try and do too much, and he did. You saw a bad trade. Michigan loses. He leaves. He's in the portal. So Booker and Garrett Normand, I saw that coming. I think every State fan wasn't shocked about that. I think it was more Trey, and then you were looking to see what's going to happen to Cohen Carr. Now, from what I understand, sounds like negotiations are going on with Jackson Kohler and Cohen Carr. That's why you haven't seen their names in the portal. Looks like they'll be able to lock those two up. Where Tom Izzo and MSU goes next, we'll see. But, yeah, now I understand why all the other coaches, from Coach K and Bennett and all of those guys, I don't want to do this. I don't want to sit here and have to recruit my players constantly and see how they feel. And, oh, did they break up with their girlfriend? Oh, I didn't play them enough time. I'm going into the portal. I'm here to coach basketball. We're not playing basketball anymore. So they just opted out. Izzo, he wants to ride this thing out. We'll see how he handles it after this off season.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be frustrating for him too, because for the last 3 or 4 years, it kind of felt like he didn't have his locker room. He didn't have his program the way he wanted it. He brought in transfers. It seems like guys didn't really care as much about Michigan State as much as this group did. And there were so many times throughout the year where he's like, I got my program back. This team only cares about winning. They're so connected. And you kind of felt like, okay, I can still do this my way. I can conform a little, but it's still mostly the way that I want to do things. And then literally 2 days after you lose in the Elite Eight, 3 of your guys go in the portal. So now it's like, okay, so where do I go from here? He just doesn't seem like the type to me to say, all right, well, I'm done with this. Like he's a maniac. So like he's going to continue to try to figure it out, but he's going to reluctantly have to get in the portal, and he's going to have to get probably 3 guys, because then you lose your 3 seniors, you lose 3 transfers. You only brought in 2 high school guys.
But see, he's done the portal thing before. But my thing is, are you going to spend the money? Like he's done it, but he's done it on the cheap. Tyson Walker, I think, he got him on the cheap. But now you got to be prepared for this. I think that if he ends up staying, it's still possible. Right now, I said Jaden Akins may be a dying breed. Recruited, played 4 years, and graduated from MSU. Jackson Kohler and Cohen Carr still could be there along with Fierce, but I just think that it's going to become a dying breed of somebody who just doesn't jump in the portal, test the waters every year. If you're I don't know where you go from this, because do you go and get a big name out of the portal, or do you trust your guys that you already have and you just get some complimentary players out the portal?
And I feel like, so Hauser, we knew it was Marquette, so that was big, but most of his other portal guys have been, lower to mid majors who have gone up. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you can find the right guys. I mean, you see Florida, they got a FAU guard and an Iona guard, and they're still playing. Auburn, they had some mid-major guys. Janai Broome was more head state. Denver Jones was a smaller school. So you have to be right. Like you go and get Frankie Fiddler thinking he's going to be one thing, and he winds up being something different. Still winds up being impactful, but maybe not the way you thought it was going to be, where you thought he was, he's a 20-point scorer at Omaha, and now he's become your 8th man. Like that, it can't be that type of player that you're bringing in next year. Like you're going to have to get some kind of wing, some kind of guard that has some size that can really shoot the ball. Because if you lose Jace as well, like you're going to need multiple people that can score. And it will help if you have some size, because as we saw, Auburn,
I can just I would be totally shocked if Jace comes back. I don't see it. I would put it at better chance of winning the Mega Millions and Powerball same weekend.
No, I mean it's fair, especially the way he's risen up these draft boards. We've seen like the Miles Bridges and Gary Harris's come back, so I won't completely rule it out, even though they were both ready and they both came back the extra year. But the way it's going now, he absolutely should test the waters. He should go through the process. He should go in the combine. If he absolutely
I thought you couldn't do that anymore. I thought that they kind of banned that and said, look, either you in or you out.
See, I thought you still could, where you could go through the process, get the feedback, and then they could say, hey, you need to go back and work on this. Okay, cool, I can go back. Or, you really don't have much to work on. All right, well, I'm leaving. So if that is still the case, he absolutely should do that. And if he wants to come back, I'm sure he'll be welcome back with open arms, and he can fight.
I'm sure he would be. Yeah,
for a Big Ten Player of the Year. But if he doesn't, if he winds up going lottery, that would be great. I just don't want him to be like, if he does go, to be on that Reed Shepherd plan where you get drafted, but then you're going up and down between G League and the Rockets. Like, I want him to be able to actually go and play. And when it's time for that second contract, he's got a lot of data behind him. It's like, oh, I can really, really get paid, as opposed to, well, I only really played a year and a half because I was so busy being on two ways and stuff like that.
Right. No, I got you. I'm trying to think. I was trying to look to see if you could still test the waters or not. So teams like Indiana, Illinois, what do you do when everybody leaves?
I mean, Brad Underwood's kind of used to it. I think he almost prefers it this way. This is like, he's a JUCO guy. at heart. So he's used to cycling through players year after year. It's certainly a shock to the system for Michigan State fans to see multiple guys transfer out in a year. But I mean, Illinois is used to it. It seems like every year he wants to have a new team and a new system. Like he's not really tied to we have to play a certain way. He get Terrence Shannon and Marcus Damask one year, and it's like, all right, we're gonna be this booty ball team, and then another year it's okay. We get these certain guys in, and we're gonna shoot a lot of threes and run up and down. So I think he actually likes reinventing himself year after year because that's just kind of what he was used to at the JUCO level. When it comes to Indiana, I mean, and Iowa, I guess pretty much a clean sheet where it's a new coach that's coming in and, you just kind of make the best of what you got. I think for Indiana, it helps that, Tucker DeVries is coming in, who was a baller at Drake, and you could see him play well at West Virginia in the short amount of time that he played before he shut it down with injury. And Iowa, same thing. Like they at least bring, Bennett Sturts in, who was the player of the year in the Valley. And McCollum clearly has a system where he's able to find guys that plug and play for him. But I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. Like USC, when Musselman was there, they had 11 new guys. Like Michigan, with Dusty May first year, they had a bunch of new guys. I think that's just the way it is, and you kind of learn on the fly. And maybe it's a Michigan State situation where you find a trip to Spain or somewhere over in Europe, and you get 5 games, and you kind of get to know your team and know your players, and maybe that's a way you can kind of get guys to gel a little faster.
All right. Well. All right, you got anything else, man? I mean, this is an ongoing thing. We'll probably come back. We could wrap up the entire season next week. But what you got now?
Yeah, I mean, well, we talked about that. Preseason unranked teams to be a top 2 seed.
Right.
That's now at 0-41 to make the Final Four. Michigan State was the first team in 9 years to actually make the Elite Eight. Oregon, 2016 was the last time to do it before they did. And it's only happened 3 times in 20 years. So they at least got to where they were supposed to seed-wise. But, overall, they were never ranked higher than 7th this year. It kind of felt that way when they played Auburn. Like this was kind of the way it was supposed to end. Like you said, the gap between the top 4 and teams 5 through 8 was significant, and we kind of saw it play out that way. Tennessee wound up losing by 19. Michigan State was never truly in the fight. Alabama got their doors blown off. So, I mean, like you said, the tournament kind of played out the way it was supposed to. And, we'll see if this Final Four winds up being great.
We'll see. I mean, at this point, I think this is Duke's tournament to lose.
Yeah, I do too.
ACC really was weak, but the top team was still the best team overall. So, yeah, Harold, we'll see how that goes. And we'll see what happens when the dust settles. Maryland with a new coach, like I said, Iowa with a new coach, Indiana with a new coach. And we'll see what happens new in the portal over the next week. So, for Harold Shelton, I'm Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5 Star Zone. Keep liking and subscribing. Harold, you want to run this back next week?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, we'll do this next week. Guys, we'll see you next week. Until then, hey, enjoy the Final Four.